Good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I hope the new time is working for everybody, or most people at least. Grateful to have you with us. It certainly helps us provide more time for the folks on the West Coast. Alrighty, let's jump in and have a look and see what the plan is for the next 45 minutes. So welcome, of course. Thank you again for being here. We're going to focus on the campaign canvas, so multi-step campaigns today. We'll look at some basics, with the whole point being from novice to ninja. Look at the four key elements you'll find on the campaign canvas to drive your campaign performance and what you're trying to deliver to your members or clients or prospects, whoever the audience may be. We'll also look at an example from the campaign canvas, working with apps to help expand the options and what's available. We'll kind of cover a little bit of the apps on the campaign canvas examples anyway. And if we have time, which we didn't have time yesterday for the Asia Pacific team, we'll look at release 24D and Q&A. But questions throughout are always welcome. The chat is active, so please go ahead and use the chat function as well. It's not private, by the way. I should modify that. It's not private. So the idea is to try and stir some conversation and get some questions. So please feel free to use either Q&A, where people can upvote your question, or use the chat, whichever is most convenient for you. My name is Derek Bell. I'm your host for today, and Adrian Jones, our CEO and founder, is helping me. So it's Adrian driving the chat. So please jump in and keep him busy. So we did have a question submitted this month from Danny in the US. Danny is a marketing lead analyst with an organization based in the United States. And he wants to know about A/B testing on multi-step campaigns and if it's possible and how to put it together, etc. I'm not sure we're going to have time today to show you how to put it together necessarily, but look, long before Eloqua added the simple campaign construct, Eloqua clients did A/B testing. We used the campaign canvas to do it. We used a shared filter to provide a little bit of logic as to how to divide the A/B. Now, of course, you've got split audience function today, so it's much easier to split your audiences on the campaign canvas. You don't need to use shared filters anymore. The only key difference between the campaign canvas in reality and the simple email campaign with A/B testing is that the campaign canvas doesn't allow you out of the box to choose the winning email. So have an audience of 10,000, you break it down and you take 5,000, which is your sample size. So 2,500 people get A, 2,500 people get B. It goes through the process. You determine what the winning metric is. Is it opens? Is it clicks? What is it? And whichever one performs best, well, the simple email campaign will automatically choose the winner, and your remaining 5,000 contacts will then receive the winning email. Now, in the campaign canvas, we can't do that last step, sending the winning email to the remaining portion of your audience. It can be done, but look, honestly, long before we had it, as I said, clients were doing it, but it was more a process of doing it over time. In the consumer world of marketing, where you're potentially emailing hundreds of thousands or even millions of people, you can do A/B testing, and your testing period might be 20 minutes or it could be an hour. And then you get the winning email, etc., and out the door it goes. So it's rare in the B2B or high value type of audience size you and I are dealing with that we really have those numbers. Some of you may, but it's rarer than our consumer friends in the consumer marketing space. There is a strategy that you can employ, but I would suggest to you it takes place over several months versus over one or two campaigns in a week sort of exercise. And it, of course, all comes back to what's your objective? What are you trying to achieve? And that's my point here to Danny, that your first question in return is, what's your objective? What is it you're trying to actually do the testing on? If we can understand that, we can assist and give you some direction on what to do there. The other thing to really consider with A/B testing is you do need numbers. Trying to do an A/B test on 500 people is, from an empirical point of view, kind of a waste of time. Okay, you really need thousands of people to get any sort of result that is of value that you could potentially make a business decision on as to what you want to do and change the design, potentially, or the approach of the emails. So keep that in mind as well. So, Danny, I hope that's helpful. Now, if at any point during the month you decide you have a question and you just want to grab it there and submit the question for the next user group, just go to myeloqua.com. If you simply enter myeloqua.com into your browser, you'll arrive at the user group microsite where the first page you'll see is to submit a question. So please feel free to do that at any point. You don't have to wait for an invitation to the user group. Okay, let's dive in. So, Campaign Canvas basics. And I got to tell you, when I started trying to think of a topic, or not the topic, but how to name this particular event, I did turn to Google Gemini to assist me with some ideas and brainstorming. So I kind of briefed it, and he came up with some really fun titles. I said, "Hey, pull back a little bit less fun, maybe just a little bit more serious." So in amongst that mix, one of them was from novice to ninja. I thought, fantastic. I like that. That's great. It really creates a visual. So I ran with it. We pushed the marketing out, etc. Then it came time to prepare this presentation. And I thought to myself, how on earth am I going to take people from novice to ninja with the campaign canvas in less than 45 minutes? I got to tell you, based on what I did yesterday with the Australian team, I'm not sure we got there. So I think there's going to have to be a second episode. So maybe that will be our December episode. So let's push on and see where we go. But it would be great to get your feedback. So again, please use the chat. If there are things we haven't covered or things you'd like to have covered, use the chat function, let Adrian know. And I think that's probably what we're going to have to do for December. So we look forward to seeing you then. All right, the basics. So the basics when it comes to the campaign canvas, if you can get these things into your head, it will generally make it a little bit easier for you to troubleshoot or understand what's going on within the canvas. So an individual human in a segment will have the ability to enter a campaign once, and at some point they will exit that campaign. Okay, so they can only enter once, and at some point they will exit. They'll either exit through the flow of the campaign that you've created, and maybe you move them to another campaign from that one to another one. That's one way to do it. However, once the campaign reaches its end date, Eloqua will remove everybody. So everybody exits the campaign either through their own volition because of the way you've designed it, or Eloqua is like, okay, end date reached, everybody is removed. And so that's why we have entry reports and exit reports on campaigns. Okay. Now, the other key thing to understand is that Eloqua will never send the same email twice on the campaign canvas. Okay, critical to understand, especially if you're wanting to send repeats. You can't use the same asset. I'll show you here in a moment on the campaign canvas what I mean by that. So rest assured, Eloqua will never send the same email twice. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, hang on, what about forms? Well, yes, of course, forms send a confirmation email generally. Is often what we're using a form for. And you'll notice on the send, submit, or an email step in the processing steps of your form that you can absolutely override it. And by default, it is turned on. So a form is different. Here, we're talking about the campaign canvas. Okay, so Eloqua will never send the same email to the same person twice on the campaign canvas. The other critical thing to understand is that a campaign must have a start date and time, and it must have an end date. Notice there's no time. Okay, so just like any campaign, if you're running a newspaper campaign, if you're running billboards on the side of the freeway, if you're running a television campaign, all of these campaigns have a start date and an end date, and your Eloqua campaign is absolutely no different. Now, of course, you have the freedom to choose whatever that end date may be. And you may hear people talk about, well, I want an always-on campaign. This campaign just needs to run forever and ever. Okay, that's fine. It can, and your end date can be the year 2050 if you need it to be. And I actually have a couple of campaigns. I don't think I chose 2050, but I think maybe 2030 or something like that. And they are absolutely that. They're campaigns that are always on. I don't want them to stop. I want them to keep functioning. Okay, so you have control. Now, why is there no end time? There's an end date, but no end time. So all Eloqua campaigns conclude at midnight local time. That's your time, okay? And it's not daylight saving time, just to be crystal clear, okay? So Eloqua does not recognize summertime. It just recognizes your local time. So if you're on the East Coast, obviously Eastern, et cetera, et cetera. So beginning and an end time. All right. just some other things to keep in mind. This is a question I do hear occasionally from new clients is in relation to, well, okay, I've got my campaign, I'm building it, I'm ready, I've activated it, but I need to, maybe it's the summer holidays are coming up, or maybe it's the Thanksgiving long weekend, and you really just want to pause the campaign. You don't want to deactivate it, you want to pause it. Okay, there is no pause function with an Eloqua campaign. And in reality, in many cases, you don't need to really deactivate the campaign. If you need to correct an email, you can do that in the email editor. That's fine. You don't need to deactivate the campaign. If you need to move people from one part of a campaign to another on the campaign canvas, again, you don't need to deactivate the campaign in order to do that. The only reason you would really need to deactivate a campaign before its end date is it needs to end because the campaign's finished and it's maybe performed better than you expected. So it just needs to be turned off. That's fine. You can do that. You can deactivate it. Then the other option, maybe you need to dramatically change the routing or the flow through that campaign. In that case, yes, you would deactivate the campaign, make the relevant changes, and then reactivate your campaign. So key message there is no pause function. It's either draft or active. So let's take a closer look. We're going to just dive in and give you a high-level introduction to the campaign canvas and just identify some of the key areas of the canvas and what it looks like. All right. So what I've done is I've selected I wanted to show you an active campaign because there are some, just makes it easier to show a few things more than anything else. So first thing you'll notice in the top left-hand corner, the word active. Okay, so it means that this campaign is live and running and will continue to deliver whatever it's delivering until the end date of the campaign, which in this case is the 30th of November. Notice 11:59 p.m. Okay, so Eloqua nominates that. It doesn't give you that option, but you can nominate it. Okay, so 11:59 p.m. All right, so why do we have a segment green and a segment gray? Really valid question. Okay, so when you put them onto the campaign, you'll notice yourself that they're green. Once it goes active, a couple of things are happening. You'll notice this number 38 and 10. So 38 and 10 represent 38 unique individuals or email addresses is probably more specific. And this one is green because it's always on. It's actually going to add members regularly until the campaign is deactivated. And it's going to do that every 3 hours, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, until the 30th of November at 11:59 p.m. This group over here, the reason it's gray is because what we've done here is we've added members once when the campaign is first activated. So that's it, game over. And that's why it's gray. It's grayed out because that function is no longer active in the context of this campaign. So nothing will change there. Now, why have I done this like this? So this is a newsletter campaign. And specifically the reason for this is that it's highly likely that from when I actually activate and launch this campaign and through until the 30th of November, I may get new subscribers. Now, those people, when they subscribe, will receive a confirmation email. But wouldn't it be fantastic if I've got a current live newsletter available that I actually sent them a copy? Fantastic, right? They've just subscribed. The iron's hot. They're excited about what we're offering. They've given us some information. And literally within an hour or so, or in this case, within 3 hours, that's why I chose the reevaluation frequency of 3 hours. So within 3 hours, I'll actually receive the latest edition of the newsletter hot off the press. Okay. So a great way to make your newsletter campaigns far more effective. All right. So other key things that you want to notice here is around the reporting area, which is this slide out menu on the right-hand side. So toggle that out, access the reporting area. You've got an audit screen, which will show you any activity. Now, if it's blank, like you saw then, you just need to go back as far as you can go back. In this case, it's 3 months. That's as far back as you can go using this particular report. Okay, so you can see what I've been up to there, and looks like it all pretty much happened on the same day. And I can close that one. The email statistics, it holds that 3-month variable, which is good. But if you wanted to get granular, you can actually get right down to the last 10 minutes or last 30 minutes, depending on the campaign. That information can be quite helpful. So you can see in the last 30 minutes, Nothing has happened in the context of this particular campaign. Now, these are the really interesting ones, the enter report and the exit reports. So if I look at the last 3 months, these are the enter reports. So these will be people coming in from the segment. And you'll notice if you look at the date and time, everybody kind of came in around 5:26 on the 12th of September. But then we start to see other group of people coming in at slightly different times. So these people have decided to subscribe at some particular point. So if I didn't create this campaign with this option tagged here, those 8 or 9 people that you just saw would have to wait until the 3rd edition of this particular newsletter. Okay, so you can see why that's a great benefit to do. Now, just as you've got an entry report, you also have an exit report. And most people will have exited, but not everybody in this case, but a few more people to flow through. So where are those people? And that's another great question for the campaign canvas. Let's have a look. So we can see that there are 3 people sitting here at the email open stage. And the reason they're sitting there is that we've got an evaluation period set for 2 weeks. So what we're doing is we're asking Eloqua, and the frequency of which we ask is, I think it's every half hour. For every half hour, actually, no, this is 2 weeks, so it's every hour, I believe it is. So for every hour, Eloqua was asking the question, have they opened the email? Have they opened the email? Like I said to the team yesterday, it's like a small child on a road trip. Same thing, are we there yet? Are we there yet? So have they opened the email? Have they opened the email? If within that 2-week period, the response is yes, well, then they move on through this process. However, at the end of that 2-week evaluation period, if the answer is still no, then they will exit here on the left-hand side. Really helpful because if you're trying to use a level of engagement as the trigger to the next step in your campaign to create a journey, then those evaluation periods are really quite helpful in helping you do that and responding relatively quickly. So if someone opens it, in this example, within an hour of them actually opening it, I'm then progressing them through. And in this case, I'm pushing information back into the CRM platform to provide updates there as well. All of these over here are landing pages and forms, and they're simply added, and the dotted lines that you can see here show you that within those particular emails, you'll find those landing pages. This is actually a microsite that people go to. And so while there's not a link in some of those specific pages within the email, there's every chance within the context of this campaign that people will look at those other pages. And what I want to do is make sure that any engagement in the context of this campaign is reflected in the campaign reporting. So by going to the campaign analysis, which is the last option there on that slide out menu, what you'll see is you're kind of it's kind of the basic reporting that any digital marketer would expect to see in the context of a campaign. And what this one is going to show me is all of the unique opens and so on and so forth. I'll zoom in there for you a little bit. The key thing that I'm looking for here is the landing page time and average time. So we can see here that people are spending on average like 9 minutes, which is interesting. Is that days, hours? Yep, 9 minutes on average. And if I hadn't put all of those other pages, that average time would be down much lower because there'd only be one page. Okay, but I've included all of the landing pages that make up that microsite to get a more holistic experience. There have been no form submissions. That's fine because there's really no forms to submit in that context. There's a contact us form. That's really kind of about it. But there's nothing else at this point in that microsite for people to download. It's more of an information environment that we're presenting. And so there's all your other stats. So this is the quickest and easiest way to get some stats from your particular campaigns that you're running. Audience, assets, decisions, and actions. These are the 4 key elements. Okay, so each element helps you drive the experience that you're trying to deliver. And they're fundamentally broken into these 4 key areas. The first one is audience. Now, you'll see a whole mix on here of segment members, which is obviously your Eloqua construct within your own database. But there are lots of other entry points, and depending on different apps that you may add, whether it's On24 webinar, Zoom webinar, go to LinkedIn lead gen forms, maybe even SMS. These are all various endpoints that can come in. Facebook is another popular one, Facebook lead ads feeder. There are a whole bunch of ways that people can come into the campaign canvas, and the segment member is not the only one. Okay, there are loads of other ways that people can enter the campaign. From there, you'll have a range of assets that you want to send to people. And you'll notice now I've highlighted the form and landing page here and where it has reporting only. So the reason for reporting only is exactly what I just showed you. The fact that I can go to that campaign report and look at that data in the context of that campaign and that average of 9 minutes. So that average of 9 minutes belongs to that campaign and to those people that went through that campaign. We have other campaigns running that are also driving people to that particular microsite, but their behavior in that campaign is irrelevant to this one. Okay, so that's why I always make sure those landing pages and forms are on that microsite, on that campaign canvas. So I get very specific reporting in relation to what people are looking at. That website or that microsite, by the way, has a lot of reading on it, hence maybe the 9 minutes people are spending there. We have people come into the campaign, we send them emails, and as a result of sending them emails, we then need to make some decisions. And so these are all of the decision steps that are available. And there are more. I just couldn't get them all on the same screen. Again, you'll see apps that have been added beyond the native Eloqua functions, but pretty much where you've got anything with a question mark. So have they clicked on an email? Are they a shared list member? Have they opened an email, etc.? These all have yes, no outcomes in them. And you can control, obviously, which direction the person goes based on the question you're actually asking. Some things to be clear about as to what we're asking. I think I said in the promotion for this month, it's about asking or knowing what you're asking Eloqua to do, because it is extremely logical. Okay, so visited website, for example. Visited website is exactly that. It's not which page on the website or anything like that. It's just simply that they've hit the website. If you want to get specific, that's where we would start to do things with shared filters. Shared filters would enable you, just like when you build a segment, you can drop in very specific URLs. If you're a membership-based organization, for example, and you may have a series of pages on your website that are all about why I should become a member of the association, then you group all of those URLs together, drop them into a shared filter. So if you have a campaign, which the purpose of that campaign is to drive people to convert and become a member of the organization, then you can use that shared filter to very specifically look at, have they visited any of these key pages? Not have they visited the blog, or have they visited just the homepage? Have they actually visited pages that talk about the value of becoming a member? Take that same logic to specific products or services that your organization may do. So shared filters are extremely helpful. So once we look at the decision and we have yes, no outcomes, or we're comparing specific data on a contact or a custom object, then we can do some actions, or we can take some actions. So from the actions, we can do a whole range of things. Many of them relate to moving people to different campaigns or adding them to different campaigns. And on that point, moving versus adding, what does that mean? So in the context of moving, that means that you would remove them from the current campaign canvas that they're in and move them to a second campaign canvas. If you add somebody to a campaign canvas, or you add them, you'll see the language up here, add and move. Add means that they remain where they are and they continue in that particular campaign, but you're now simultaneously having them take part in another campaign. So add versus move. Okay. Contact Washing Machine is a very popular app, and that can probably be a topic for another day. But yeah, you'll see a whole range of functions here doing a whole range of different things. There's a lot of really good detail contained in the Help Center that goes into detail on each of those Eloqua out of the box campaign canvas pieces or elements on the canvas. So please, yeah, jump in and you'll find some really good information in there to get specifics. All right, so Eloqua and webinar apps. From an app point of view, the webinar apps are probably right up there. with one of the more popular apps that people are adding. These four particular apps are probably the most popular, and I think from memory, these are I'm not sure there's others beyond this. I don't hold me to that, but these are the four that we see being used all the time. Zoom on 24 are probably, well, yeah, probably the most popular. GoToWebinar and WebEx have been around for a long time, and they've been integrated with Eloqua for a long time as well. And we certainly have clients using all four of these. So they all perform essentially the same function, but they do it in slightly different ways. Fundamentally, though, they offer you the ability to either use their infrastructure to send emails and present registration forms and so on and so forth. Some of them work better with Eloqua in letting Eloqua manage that process for you. And that's what you experience every month with the user group. So we use Zoom. We have used On24 before, but we use Zoom every month for the user group to send. Eloqua sends you emails. You arrive at an Eloqua landing page. The big reason or the benefit for that is we can personalize that page much better. The form experience is better because it should pre-populate. We can add in progressive profiling questions. It's just a much nicer experience, I think, than any of these platforms can provide from a form point of view. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I have to go back to, there are lots of things I register for with other companies, and it drives me crazy that I have to consistently populate the form, and they don't want to ask 2 or 3 questions. They typically want to ask a lot of questions and say every time it's refill, refill, refill. So that's why we use Eloqua to deliver the experience. So I hope you're having that good experience that I'm just talking about. There can be a hybrid as well. Most of them only do their webinar product as well. Certainly, I think GoTo and WebEx. With Zoom, you've got Zoom webinar, but also Zoom meeting. So if you've got a meeting that's maybe a little bit more formal that you are doing through Zoom, that you'd like to have a registration process for, well, you can use Eloqua and Zoom together to manage that process for you. So that makes it easier, but it's made super easy if we use templates. So templates really are your best friend. And I just wanted to show you, this is literally a screenshot from our instance of Eloqua. And I want to show you that I do use templates. I absolutely do use them. And you can see them listed here, for example, invitations, reminders, all sorts of things, slightly different designs for different things. Same with the emails. All of the emails that you receive in the context of the user group are very heavily templated, giving me the ability to personalize and just really focus on the copy that I'm sending you. So we can keep it short or expand on whatever we need to. And other templates for segments as well. So, I mean, there's landing pages, of course, and forms. I just wanted to show you a few here that I do. And it's the same thing from a segmentation point of view. Again, great templates. So we support clients in building some of these templates for them, go through a little bit of a briefing process, understand what your objective is, then getting into it and giving you some red flags to be aware of, things to avoid. Sometimes we can go a little bit too far in our templating and we kind of constrict ourselves. And there are some great ways you can do better than that. So let us help you take advantage of our experience and help you with that process. So what I want to do now is show you quickly some examples. If this is what your campaigns look like, I'm sorry, this is not good. Okay, this is beyond basic. Actually, you can see here I called it extremely basic. This is MailChimp. This is Outlook. This is, this design of a campaign is doing nothing to exploit or take advantage of the functionality that Eloqua is giving you. So if that's where you're at, let's graduate. Let's move on. Okay, so I would suggest to you that something like this should be amongst the most basic campaigns that you run. And this is one of the very first templates we build for brand new clients from a campaign canvas point of view. What this campaign is doing is a few things, giving you ability to obviously add your segment. Over here, we talk about a seed list. Different companies use different terms, but a seed list is just your internal staff, essentially. So it's good to break them out because this list doesn't really change a great deal. And if it does, that's fine. You can manually add the person to it. But that actual segment that sits in there doesn't change, or it's not a new one every time I create a campaign. It's a flat segment that was created, I think, like 9 years ago. And I just have modified it over the years in relation to who's in it. That's really it. This one here, obviously, is going to be quite different because it would probably change every campaign. Okay. So people come through, and in this case, it's a newsletter campaign. And what we're going to do is send the first newsletter out to people. We can then wait for a period of time. Now, depending on the content in your newsletter, you may determine that waiting for a period of time or actually waiting until a specific date and time could be more valuable. So if you've got anything in the newsletter that potentially has an expiry date, an offer of some sort, or an event of some sort, if that event will have passed by the time you want to send the second email, then that's fine. You can factor all of those things in. Here, what we're doing is we're simply asking, did they open the first email, yes or no? And if they didn't, we're going to send them a repeat. Now, to my point earlier, that Eloqua will never send the same email twice. So what I mean by that is we can't add the exact same email here and then add the exact same email here. Now, in most cases, from a newsletter point of view, the second edition, the second email that you send, the content isn't going to change. The only thing that really needs to change is the subject line. The subject line, maybe the preview text. You can change the from as well. Like, is it from your brand or from a person within the company or organization? There's a few options there, but that's really it, okay? Because they didn't open the first one. That step alone right there, we had an HR organization here in Australia who ran pretty significant campaigns. I mean, her campaigns were, I say her because she was a business owner and it was her organization, and I spent a lot of time with her. And she made the point that we did some analysis and evaluation over time. And this email here, based on using this element right here, delivered on average a lift of 35% in their unique open rates. So initially she was like, oh, I don't want to spam people. I'm like, look, you're not spamming them. They didn't even open the first one, which means they probably didn't even see the first one. Maybe they deleted it or it just ended up falling down at the bottom of their inbox and they're never going to see it again. She agreed and concurred and then decided she couldn't argue with a 35% lift in unique open rates purely based on this second email following on this point here. All right, now we can do a little bit better. That's a basic newsletter campaign. I'd suggest to you, here's one I provide, or here's one I built earlier. This now fundamentally is exactly the same, but perhaps in this context, the email contains a specific call to action for the person to do a particular thing. And instead of just, did they open it? Yes, and that's the end of the campaign. Maybe you want to do something with that information. So if you know for a fact that they've clicked on something, and that's where we could use a shared filter, because again, we don't want to simply ask the question, did they click on the email? We don't want to ask the question, did they simply click? Because clicking is asking, did they click on anything in the email? Did they click on the logo? Did they click on the Facebook icon or the social icons in the bottom of your email? Did they click on unsubscribe? Did they click on the privacy policy? All of those clicks are completely irrelevant to your campaign objective. Your campaign objective is, did they click on article number 1, the primary article with the big call to action? Did they click on that one? Okay. So that's where we would use a shared filter to be far more specific than just, did they simply click? Okay. And then as a result of that, what you may want to do is now move them to a separate campaign canvas. Notice move versus add. So that becomes an exit point in that particular campaign. And we can move them over to another campaign, which now more specifically talks to the key topic that you had here. So imagine if you had a newsletter from maybe it's a university with multiple topics around different types of degrees. Depending on people's levels of engagement, you could then move them off to other campaigns that then narrow in and talk more specifically about that particular degree that's on offer. if you're a membership-based organization or a manufacturing organization, whatever it may be, you can use that information to look at person's engagement and then shift them onto something that is far more targeted as to what they're inquiring about or what their behavior would indicate they're interested in. Okay. Now, of course, this group over here probably needs to be rethought because obviously we're sending that email. They didn't open the first one. So what if this group clicks? Okay, well, if that group clicks as well, we probably want to get rid of that and then potentially swing this group back around here. Now, if I leave it as it is right now, I'm going to send the email, and a nanosecond later, before they probably even had a chance to look at it, I'm going to ask the question, did they click on the article? Now, the answer is always going to be no, because it all happens so fast. So what we can do here is potentially also add a evaluation period. And so maybe it's 2 weeks, maybe it's a week, whatever it might be. So that now means on a regular basis, the person will sit here for a maximum period of a week. And in that week, we're going to continuously ask the question, did they click on the major article? Or key article? Did they click on the key article? Yes, yes, yes. If they did, fantastic. They'll also move over here, etc. Now, if you're going to add that evaluation period, you could potentially look at removing the wait step altogether and maybe just putting in evaluation periods throughout the campaign. So typically, if you're going to use an evaluation period, generally, not always, but generally, you would do that in the absence of using the wait elements. So it then might look something like this. So we sit here for a week. Oh, sorry, whoops, that's a month. That should be a week. And we ask the question for over a week, come down here. Again, we wait for another week. And in that evaluation period, we're just consistently asking the question. Okay. So there's a slightly more engaging or slightly more advanced type of campaign that you would use for newsletters. Don't forget the option to add members regularly, and you determine whatever you think is the most logical. Typically, the way I look at it is somebody has either come into our database, maybe it's a membership platform, CRM platform, student management system, whatever it may be, and that's integrated to Eloqua. And you may have a whole set of criteria over here as to why people would receive this newsletter. Maybe they've subscribed to the email group. That's the ideal state. But you may have other parameters as well. So as new people come into the system and they meet that criteria, let's get this information out to them. You've spent all this time building this great newsletter. Let's maximize the eyeballs that newsletter can be seen by people. Okay. Okay, so apps can really help extend your reach in relation to what you're doing. And you've seen, as we've looked there at the campaign canvas just now, that there are a range of different webinar apps, as an example. The thing I learned from yesterday, by the way, that it's impossible for me within this time frame to present both the webinar platform ideas for a campaign canvas as well as the newsletter. So webinar Canvas design is definitely on the agenda for next month. So if there's a platform you're using, if you could let us know, and if you'd like to see a little bit more about that, or if you have specific questions about webinars and integrating those with Eloqua, please drop them in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll take all of that information in preparation for next month. Okay, so looking at apps. So there are a whole range of apps, as I said, and you can Google Oracle Cloud Marketplace. If you're the Eloqua administrator, you can go into the settings area of Eloqua apps and you'll find a link that will take you directly to the Oracle Cloud Marketplace, but you can just Google it and you'll arrive at the same place. But only an administrator can add apps to Eloqua, just so you're aware. The only thing that I would encourage you to consider is understanding where these apps are being hosted, and as a result, where your personally identifiable data is also being stored. So depending, it all depends on data sovereignty and what's important to your organization and what your legal counsel is advising. But there are loads of apps to choose from, lots of things to look at. A couple from an artificial intelligence point of view that people are kind of playing with and wanting to have a little bit of experimentation with. These are two. You hopefully have heard of the Eloqua Advanced Intelligence option. What that does, recent enhancements to that now include generative AI for copy authoring. You can do predictive lead and account scoring, fatigue analysis, and more that you can do with that one. Motiva are a friend of ours. They're based in the US, and they've been doing this actually for quite a while. Before Eloqua added their advanced intelligence, Motiva have been playing in this space for a number of years. They have some really cool things. We're going to explore more about Motiva in early next year. But what I wanted to point out here, and the reason I wanted to highlight Motiva, is they do in fact have, through their app, which obviously is a paid service, is an automated A/B testing function on a multi-step campaign. So, Danny, if you are on the call today, that could be something to consider and have a look at. You'll find lots of information about Motiva in the Oracle Cloud Marketplace, or obviously on their website as well. Now, event check-in with QR codes. This is something that we're having a lot of fun with at the moment. So this is a solution that has been designed and developed by Marketing Cube. And what it enables you to do is what you're looking at on the screen there on the right-hand side is a confirmation email where a person has registered for an event. And I've concealed the person's name. That's why you're seeing the little odd circle around thank you. That's just blocking out someone's name. So that QR code is unique to that particular email and to that particular person. So when they arrive at the event, in this case, Cafe Sydney in Sydney, they will have probably me with my smartphone, grab the QR code reader, I scan. No special app on the phone, by the way, just the standard out-of-the-box Apple or Samsung QR code reader. Scan it, and that does some magic in the background and immediately notifies Eloqua that the person has checked in. Now, because that's happened, there are a whole bunch of things I can automate. I can automate an external activity creation. I can automate an SMS going to that person saying, thank you for joining us today. It's great to see you. Don't forget to do this, and this, whatever it might be, or I can send them an email. There's a whole range of things I can do. So, yeah, if you're interested and you feel for your events as we get ready probably for the next event season in 2025, if this would make your life a lot easier for your team, let's have a chat. We can walk you through what that looks like. Okay, we've got 15 seconds before I finish. All right, so the key thing is Redwood is now the default, okay? And for those of you on Standard Edition or Enterprise Edition of Eloqua, the other big news is you now have 5 or 10 users able to access the new Eloqua guided campaigns. Again, we'll be looking at guided campaigns in the new year in a bit more detail, but just an FYI, that subscribe now is to subscribe to the Eloqua Important Update email that we do once a quarter. It's live and it's active, so if you scan that QR code, you will receive within 24 hours the latest edition, which relates to release 24D as well. So other things is Redwood is now the default. That's the big thing. A number of new areas have been added. It's end-to-end Redwood in the simple campaign construct and A/B testing. New launch pads, emails, landing pages, and dynamic content. You've seen all of this. As long as you've moved to release 23D, which I think most of you, if you're on pod 1, will have done. I can't remember which pods are waiting, but the last round is, I think, on the 18th. I'm just trying to look at a calendar. Yeah, I think it's around the 18th. Is the final changes for some pods. If you've got the Eloqua or Oracle Artificial Intelligence, Advanced Intelligence add-on, there has been changes to the subject line optimization as well, and that will arrive soon after 24D, or just after. They've said that's not a date, but just after. So just be patient for that one. It'll come shortly. The support for signature rule endpoints from an API point of view, what does that mean? What that means, or one thing you can do with that new enhancement, is automatically adjust and change signature rules within Eloqua based on changes to usually the CRM platform. So if you're having new users being created within the CRM platform, you can create some logic, which will then also enable a rule within Eloqua to automatically be updated to reflect that. Okay, just as an FYI. List unsubscribe header, more information in our newsletter, so I would encourage you to subscribe to that. And you can learn more about Redwood on either the QR code on the right, or again, subscribe to our newsletter on the left-hand side. First of all, thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate you making some time. And I just wanted to let you know that as far as next month goes, we will be meeting. Sorry, I'm out of control here with the screen. We will be meeting next month. The information will flow through to you. Is always the first Wednesday of the month. And next month, as I said, we're going to be exploring and looking at the webinar construct and using the campaign canvas, kind of novice to ninja episode 2. So if there's anything you missed today that you were hoping to get out of, didn't quite get the answer, please feel free to submit a question, email us directly, whatever's easiest for you. We'd love to hear from you. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and thanks so much for joining us. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.